Next, I would like to invite Rick Long up, our Executive Vice President and General Counsel, up to the stage to give us his thoughts about where the industry is and where it might be going. Rick, I will turn it over to you, sir, and I promise I did not drink your water. Let's give him a little round of applause. Come on down.
Thank you.
He doesn't need the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Robert Peavy has made a number of excellent decisions, both in his life and on behalf of PEI. Having 7 cats may not be one of them. I just am reflecting on that and what that says about Robert, but thanks so much. And Robert, truly thank you for your leadership this year. What a great year it's been, and a lot of that is due to you, so we thank you as well. Tonight, or this morning, we are going to have a sneak preview of some survey results that are going to be publicized in a variety of ways over the next couple of weeks. You'll see a Tulsa letter article. You'll see a PEI Journal article. You'll see some other releases about this. We conducted the survey just about 3 weeks ago of our manufacturers, our distributors, our S&C members, and I think you're going to see some interesting results. I think you're also going to see some surprising results in a couple of places. But the most important thing for the time that we're going to spend together is not what you're going to see up on the screen. It's what you're going to conclude for your own business. What does it mean for you? How is it going to make you rethink what you're doing? Is it going to make you change some of the things you're doing? Different ones of you will make different decisions, but that's really the call, is for you to consider how to respond to what you're going to see here. No company operates in a vacuum. No industry operates in a vacuum. It's important to think, first of all, just about the broader context in which we're operating right now. And it is a wonderful time to be in business. I mean, if you look at the macro picture, the big picture of our economy, pretty much every indicator in every reality is one that helps us right now. Taxes are down. Interest rates are low-ish, coming up a little bit, but still at very low levels. Business regulations are down. Gross domestic product is up. Manufacturer confidence is way up. PEI participates in a group called the National Association of Manufacturers. Manufacturer confidence is at a 20-year high, more than 20 years actually. And unemployment is at historically low levels. In terms of the industry, the same thing. The federal underground storage tank regulatory deadline is here this Saturday, if you were in the UST session the other day. And by the way, thanks to those of you who participated in yesterday's sessions. We had 3 education sessions yesterday with more than 400 people in there, and we are really excited about that. But the regulatory deadlines are here. State regulatory deadlines will be approaching soon. The EMV deadline is getting closer. Sump testing is accelerating. There are all sorts of new opportunities out there. As you think about context, though, it's not just the economic indicators that you have to look at. Last year, I talked about 3 people who were going to have an impact on our industry in one way or another. First was President Trump, and he's still here this year. Second was Scott Pruitt, the administrator of the EPA. He has now been replaced by Andrew Wheeler in that role. And third was Elon Musk with Tesla. And he's still here, but I elected to use this picture of him. You may have seen on September the 7th, Mr. Musk was photographed smoking marijuana live on a web broadcast. Maybe not his best choice. Shortly after that, he uttered the famous words that he had secured funding to take the company private. The result of that was a $20 million fine to him personally, a $20 million fine to the company. So he's had a rough year, but he's still there. So the question is, where are we and where are we going? Let's look first at the distributor side. First slide here, sources of distributor revenue this year. There is a shift. This shift has been continuing over the last few years from retail fueling into other revenue sources. Last year, 56% on the retail side. This year, 52%. Fleet fueling, almost static, down just a little bit. But you're seeing a shift at the bottom to everything else, other things. That could be lift, it could be lube, it could be aviation, it could be electrical contracting. We know a number of distributors who are doing that. So there is a continuing shift away from retail. How's business? On a 1 to 10 scale, this is a question we typically ask. Let's look at the last 5 years. So on the first of the 4 of those years, you'll see we started out at a 6.77 to last year at a 7.2. I remember asking the question last year, is this showing a decline or is it statistically meaningful from 2015 to 2017? The answer is it's not statistically meaningful. This year, confidence was at 7.45 in terms of how distributors feel, so as high as it's ever been. What's going well? Construction was at the top of the list, 20.6%. EMV upgrades were number 2, 17.5. Testing and compliance, which is a very broad category, encompasses a whole bunch of different things. Diversification, broadening the revenue stream was next. And you'll see this when we get to the manufacturers as well, but a surprising number of members just said everything is going well. There is not a single factor that I can pick out. Everything is going well. What's trending? This is an analysis we did of answers, open-ended answers to questions that we posed to distributors, that we could just kind of pick up a sense of what's out there, what's coming. And number 1 was improved management practices. I think that this factor is here because all of you are trying to do more with less. Everybody talks about the service technician shortage, and we will talk about that as well here in just a minute. But we read things about new efficiencies, new ways to be more economical, new processes, new technology that members are using to try to improve their business and improve their bottom line. UST closure and replacement is definitely a trending item, and that's going to be continuing for a number of years. We are at the front end of a many-year period in which tank closures are going to be a reality in increasing numbers. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. High-throughput fueling facilities. As some of the retailers are getting bigger, there's lots of opportunities there, and for some distributors, that's good. And then last, the non-retail work, commercial lifts and lubes and other things that I mentioned. There was also a number of distributors who talked about ASTs for construction sites and road and bridge crews as infrastructure is gaining some traction. Biggest challenge, surprise, shortage of qualified technicians. I know you're all shocked to see that one at the top of the list, but that's a reality. Margins, pressure on margins. Number 3 was change. This is a broad category as well. New technologies, new regulatory hurdles, new compliance, both deadlines and just trying to understand what the new requirements are. And manufacturer relations came in number 4. And I don't think that's anything unusual. There's always some tension between distributors and manufacturers. Right now, there maybe is a little extra tension as manufacturers are changing their business model, but that made the list as well. What about manufacturers themselves? How's business on the manufacturer side? A banner year. Manufacturers for the last few years had been trending slightly behind the distributors in terms of how business is going. This year blew through the roof. That number, 7.49, is actually higher than what we saw on the distributor side. So business is good. What's going well for the manufacturers? At the top of the list was upgrade and replacement of aging infrastructure, consistent with what we see on the distributor side. As tank systems become older, as they hit the 30-year warranty, lots of opportunities for distributors and manufacturers both. Compliance-related upgrades and repairs, broad category high. New store construction. And again, that last one, many of our manufacturers said everything is going well across the board. And that's really exciting to see. Biggest challenge for manufacturers, same as on the distributor side, shortage of skilled labor. Some manufacturers, actually a significant number, said, we're good. Not really a big challenge right now. It's a wonderful time to be in business. But they also mentioned customer consolidation. That can be good news for some manufacturers as a given customer grows, takes on, and brings the manufacturer along with them. It can be more difficult for others if you get shut out on that. Looking ahead, we asked distributors, how do you feel about next year? Very strong performance, the highest tracking 2 years ago at 7.48 on a 10-point scale. Same question of manufacturers. Manufacturers are very comfortable and confident about what's going to happen next year. And then we broadened it to ask about the next 3 years. And the numbers are significant. On both distributors and manufacturers, more than 80% were either extremely optimistic or moderately optimistic looking over the next 3 years. How many employees do our members expect to have next year? On the distributor side, not a single distributor said, I expect to hire fewer employees next year. 33%, 34% said about the same, and 66% said we expect to hire more, or at least would like to hire more if we can find those people. On the manufacturer side, a few manufacturers actually expect that they may hire fewer employees next year. There's some rationale to that. There are some efficiencies that you can get on the manufacturer side that may not always require new people to do more work. But again, a significant number expect to have more employees next year. Threats and opportunities. We wanted to get just some opinions. These are just what our members think. They're not necessarily scientifically based opinions, but they are opinions nonetheless, broadly based. We asked the question, if E15 could be sold year-round nationwide, what impact would that have on the number of retailers offering this blend? As most of you know, currently E15 is restricted for summertime sale, and we want, but there's been a big push to get that to a year-round status nationwide. None of our distributors thought that would make a dramatic increase in the sale of E15. 13% thought a moderate increase, 37% said small increase, so 50% of our members think that could make a difference. Now, we may well get a chance to get some data on this. President Trump today is in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and the word is that he's going to announce the initiation of a new rulemaking to allow the year-round sale of E15. Now, we've heard this before, frankly, and it hasn't really materialized, but that's the word, that's the expectation that he's going to say. And moreover, the expectation is that the rulemaking is going to try to push toward making E15 available next year, 2019, the summer of 2019. So we'll see. Read the news after this meeting and see if that actually happens. Here's a wild card. E15 is in the process of being rebranded right now to the new name Unleaded 88. Ethanol advocates, ethanol groups, including some in PEI, have decided that rebranding to this name may actually help the sales of the product. And so you'll see now there's a new site, and I think the URL is ul88.com. You'll see that. Growth Energy has produced that. Some convenience store chains are already using that terminology. Others will follow. Will that have an impact on the way customers see the fuel? Will they see it as, oh, it's a higher octane fuel. It's not an ethanol issue at all. Will that make consumers more interested in the fuel? We will have to see. But be watching that. You'll see your customers moving in that direction. We also asked distributors, as the October 2020 EMV forecourt deadline approaches, how would you describe the pace of these upgrades? 40% said we are not seeing any change at all in the rate at which our customers are doing that adoption. That's a pretty frightening number. 54%, granted, said a moderate increase, which you would expect, but if that no change at all number doesn't go down pretty quickly, the log jam as we get closer toward October 2020 is only going to grow. We also asked, what percentage of your customers do you think already have completed or will complete those upgrades by the deadline? We heard that 33% already have, just on the hardware. We know there's still some software issues out there and some processing things, but hardware itself, 33% already completed. And the estimate is that that's essentially going to double by the deadline to 64%, but that still leaves a significant number that will not be there. We ask, what is the primary reason do you think customers will not complete the upgrades by the deadline? Again, not a single distributor said, there's not equipment and we can't get the work done. What they did say is, those darn retailers are just putting it off, the procrastination factor. Now, I guess that depends on what seat you sit in, how you see that reality. Is it procrastination or is it a shortage? But that's the primary reason. Also, a significant percentage of our distributors said, we are hearing from our customers, they're just not going to do it. 23%, we do not expect that they are going to make the upgrade. They're going to accept the liability without the security increase. And 20%, a very good, honest answer, said, we don't know. We don't know why they're putting it off, why it hasn't happened. In terms of the new federal underground storage tank regulations, as you would have heard in the session yesterday, Saturday is the deadline for those states that are following the federal rule to upgrade their systems and create the new requirements. Our distributors said that they expect 48.7% of their customers will be in compliance by that deadline. That's a pretty good number, but it leaves a whole lot that will not have done it. Again, we ask the question, why? Why do you think it's not happening? Procrastination, again, was the number one factor. 70% have just put it off and will continue to put it off. Shortage of technicians, 2%. That's a reality. But essentially, the distributors are saying, if the orders come in time, we can get it. That's what we've been saying all along. And again, some say that their customers, they just don't expect will do it, which is an interesting idea. We ask about the pace of UST replacement. So I talked about this briefly earlier in 2018. 23.7% of our distributor members said we are already seeing an increase in the pace of tank closures and replacements of new tanks as they have hit that 30-year warranty. The big wave of installations starting in 1988, 89, we're now at that 30-year mark, and so we're beginning to see that. 61% said we're not seeing a lot of it yet, but I would really focus on that first number. That first number, I promise you, is going to go up every year from now for the next 10, 15 years. You're going to see that number growing in terms of replacements. We also asked distributors to rate the following threats. We wanted to see how some other things compared to the shortage of technicians. Customers who are taking on service work themselves, remote equipment monitoring that the manufacturers are handling, government regulations, the rise of electric vehicles. None of those other factors came even close to the shortage of technicians. None of them even ranked as high as a 5 on a scale of 10. So you distributors are really not worried about any of those things right now. We also ask about skimmers, and this is an interesting number. According to our distributors, the incidence of skimming devices that they are encountering has actually gone down this year. Maybe it has to do with some improvements in EMV technology. Maybe it has to do with other factors. Maybe it has to do with awareness. But there's a slight decrease in the number of skimmers that members are encountering from 2017 to 2018. Now, this may be, in my view, the most interesting slide in the whole presentation. We ask, to what extent are you, distributors, involved in EV, electric vehicle, charging station installation and or service? 3.5% of you said we're already in that. Now, that's not a big number, granted. But then 15.8% said we're going to do it. We are going to do it. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're going to do it. 52% said effectively we might. We haven't decided yet. We're looking at it. And only 28% said we have no interest in that at all. Now, that is a sea change. That is a significant change from what we've seen over the last couple of years. Distributors who are saying, I want to get in the game. I might want to get in the game. I'm going to look at it at least.
That is a significant number. You're hearing announcements at this show of significant manufacturers in our industry already who are going back in. Some tried ones that came back, going back in, making announcements of new equipment that they're going to have available for that side. So that's definitely going to be something to watch. We also ask, today 75% of retail fuel purchases are made by credit card. We ask, just for an opinion from distributors, how will fuel purchases be made in 5 years? And here's what the distributors said. 58% by credit or debit at the pump, 26% contactless mobile at the pump, which is still an infrastructure that you guys would take care of, in-dash payment apps, 10%. Almost every week there's a new release and a new announcement about some retailer or some auto manufacturer who's making a deal, creating an alliance, starting a technology to allow in-dash payments. And so that's coming. And cash inside the store stays small, but is still a reality there. We asked manufacturers about 3D printing. Just one comment on this. It seems to be a shift away from production type work to just prototypes, which is sort of interesting. Maybe there's an instance of manufacturers seeing that it's incredibly valuable to use 3D printing, but more on the prototype side than on the actual production side. In international sales, as was true last year, we continue to see our manufacturers say that that the pace of international business is growing and is going to continue to grow over the next 5 years. Last question we asked was about cyber insurance. How many of you, both distributors and manufacturers, have cyber insurance to protect your company? And a minority at least, 31% on the manufacturer side, 34% on the distributor side, have cyber insurance. I would encourage you to look into that. Hacking, malware, ransomware. Ransomware is the new business model for hackers, by the way. I would encourage you to look into that. Cyber insurance is not that expensive. It's very valuable. There are all sorts of things going on out there right now. You are not immune. If the most recent incident was Facebook, 50 million Facebook accounts were compromised. And I would assume they have pretty good security. I would suggest that you take a look at that. So with all these things that we have talked about, how is PEI responding? Just very quickly, I'll mention 5 things and then I will be done. Number 1, we are committed to leading the way on the safe removal of underground storage tanks, of decommissioning and replacement. And so today, I'm happy to announce that our RP 1700 document, Recommended Practices for the Closure of Underground Storage Tanks and Shop Fabricated Above-Ground Storage Tanks, the work on that document has now been completed. Last week before last, I've lost track of time, the wonderful committee who's worked on that, finished their work, public comments have all been dealt with. I will promise you that document will be out in November, next month. I'm hopeful it's in the earlier part of the month. But we think that document is going to make a huge contribution to the industry as these tanks begin to come out of the ground, whether for warranty reasons or insurance reasons or regulatory reasons. As they begin to come out, we want to have the practices, the best practices, and encourage people to do it that way. Number 2, we are continuing to engage with non-retail organizations. We have ongoing conversations with the Automotive Lift Institute, with the International Car Wash Association, to see what kind of collaboration we can do in some cases, how can we complement each other. PEI has always been about collaboration. We don't necessarily want to own anything. We just want to help and be of service. And if we can bring our members to the opportunities in those areas, we sure want to do that. Number 3, continue to grow the research and analysis that we do. Not only on our own side, but also we're doing more and more with the Fuels Institute. I'll talk about Scott in just a second, but Scott is now serving on a couple of committees with the Fuels Institute for their technical research. And speaking of Scott, as Robert mentioned, deepening our staff technical expertise. We are so excited. This is the first time that PEI has had on staff a true technical expert that has worked with you guys, that understands the realities, the dynamics, the practicalities. And so Scott is already making a great contribution. It's going to be involved in training programs, safety programs, our recommended practices, and just technical support of members. More and more calls are coming into our office just with, what do you think? What should we do about this? And Scott's there to answer that. And 5, as Robert mentioned, pursue the growth and service in Latin America. Robert said that the search for the Latin America director is underway. I would say that it is well underway. You will be hearing an announcement on that, we hope, by the end of the year, and perhaps even quite a bit sooner than that. But we're going to continue to build on our Spanish language education here at Convention. The second year of our Spanish languaging program, we continue to be thrilled at that we can now help members we couldn't have helped before in their native language, translation of key resources, and partnering with Latin American groups. So that's the end of this presentation, but it's really just the beginning for you. Look for these slides are going to be posted. I think we're even videoing this presentation as well. Look at that again. Continue to reflect, see how it impacts you. Thank you for that. And on behalf of the staff, Robert was kind enough to recognize our staff, many of whom are not here because they're working in the back. It's not that they don't care, but I would just say on behalf of our staff, it is an honor to work with and represent and help you guys. So thank you so much for that opportunity. Appreciate it.